I bought a new battery on Amazon for the MacBook Pro, 13-inch Retina display, early 2015 model. It came with T5 and P5 screwdrivers. Remember to take safety precautions when changing out the battery. You want to make sure your original battery is fully discharged and that you don't accidentally puncture it. Lithium-ion batteries can explode if either of these things happen. Additionally, before you begin, ensure you have adhesive remover, like acetone or something similar, to deal with the battery adhesives. It's also a good idea to read through the instruction booklet that comes with the battery to understand its operation and best practices for use. The lower case is held on by 8 3mm P5 screws, and the top two in the middle are 2.3mm P5 screws. When removing these screws, keep track of their location. I use a checkered magnetized mat. Each square corresponds to a screw's position on the case. Be mindful with Macs. Each screw needs to go back to its original location, as they are designed specifically for that spot. Now, to remove the lower case, position your hand at the top, grip it, and gently pop the case off with a back and forth motion. Set it aside. Make sure you're wearing gloves or have a way to discharge static electricity from your body to the frame of the case to avoid frying the electronics. When you first open it up, you'll see a plastic cover adhered to the battery contact board. You'll need to peel this back enough that it's out of the way. I use the flat end of the spudger to lift the battery connector. Bend it up and out of the way to prevent accidental contact with its socket during the repair. Next, there are two 2.1mm T5 screws. These secure the logic board and the I/O board cable bracket. Remove those two screws, and then remove the cable bracket. After that, use the spudger to pop the I/O board connector straight up from its socket on the logic board. This is similar to how you disconnected the power board, and all the rest of the connectors should be handled the same way. Remember, don't pry up on the socket itself, just the connector. The first time you disconnect it, it might be a little firm and the cable will be a little stiff, so be careful not to bend it too far when you're trying to move it out of the way, as this could cause damage. Moving on to the right speaker, slide the spudger under the speaker cable, near the connector, underneath it, and gently pry. Use your plastic tool in a back and forth motion until it pops up. At the top of the speaker, remove the 15.7mm T5. Underneath that is a 6.5mm T5, and the one to the right of that is a 3.8mm T5. Again, keep track of where each one goes. Now it's time to remove the right speaker from the device. Slowly trace the speaker wire to make sure all the adhesive is pulled away. Then, you can remove the speaker from its channel. Do the same for the left speaker in a similar fashion. This one was adhered a little more strongly at the cable to the board, so I had to slide the spudger in a little further before the connector to get a good grip. I needed to pull the adhesive up to get a solid grip to pop it up on the other side. This one also has 3 screws. The top one is a 5.7mm T5. The middle one, a 6.5mm T5, and the left of that, a 3.8mm T5. The screws in my left speaker were a little difficult to remove, so I left the bottom 2 in the housing. Be aware of this and prevent them from falling out when you remove the left speaker. Angle the left speaker, and then you can pull it straight up without any issue. Now, it's time for the trackpad. This connector removes the same way as the others. Lift the trackpad cable up off the battery to separate it from the adhesive securing it. If this is too difficult to pull up, or if you feel like you might damage the cable, lightly apply heat with a hairdryer for just a second. Or, if you have an eye opener, you can heat that up. Do not use a heat gun, hairdryer, and acetone at the same time, or boom. To get to the connector, you'll need to pull back that little bit of tape. You'll see it's a Z-F connector. Use the flat end of the spudger to pop up the black tab. You can then gently rock the cable back and forth until it comes out. There's a little adhesive right at that connector, so it might be slightly difficult. Just be careful not to damage it. To remove the battery, there's only a single 3.7mm T5 screw securing it to the case. The rest is adhesive. Now comes the less fun part, removing the battery. The simplest way I've found is to apply acetone directly to it. First, I lay a sheet of aluminum foil between the keyboard and screen to avoid the acetone spilling onto the display. Then, tilting the device at an angle, I pour about a cap or two's worth of acetone onto the underside of the battery. After the liquid pools at the bottom of the case, tilt it to the other side. Continue this process until the acetone no longer pools and has attached itself to the adhesive under the battery. Ensure you have foil covering the display, or it will damage it permanently. Note, this is dangerous. A spark can ignite the acetone, and the battery could explode. The fumes are also dangerous to your health. Do not get it on your hair, skin, or eyes. Matter of fact, do not attempt this method. I am a trained professional. Do not use a heat gun, hair dryer, and acetone at the same time, or boom. After letting it sit, I'd say about 5 minutes, it should be ready to start removing the battery. Battery removal is difficult at best. First, you don't want to damage the computer. Second, you don't want to puncture the battery and cause an explosion. And third, you don't want to bend the battery in a way it's not designed to, which could also cause an explosion or further damage to the device. So, take it slowly. Work on one side at a time. If it doesn't come up at all, apply your choice of remover again, ensuring you do not mix the removal methods. The battery is easily removed after the adhesive has soaked for a little bit of time. After a bit of back and forth work, I get it to pop up off the computer. That was easy, wasn't it? Again, this might not be something the average person would want to try. Remember, I am a professional and have done this many times. A good trick to remove any remaining adhesive, if it doesn't come up with the battery, is to use something plastic and twist the adhesive around it. If you're lucky and twist it just right, a whole piece of adhesive will come away with it. My camera didn't capture the battery installation, but you just align it as best you can. Make sure the plastic housing on the battery aligns with the screw holes. The screws from the lower case need to be able to route through the battery bracket and into the upper case. Fasten the battery down with the 3.7 mm T5 screw. A word of advice: when installing screws back into a computer or anything else, for that matter, place the screw in the hole and turn it to the left until it seats, then tighten it. This ensures you've correctly engaged the threads. If you just put it in and start tightening, you might miss the thread and damage it. Getting the trackpad cable back in can be difficult. Before you insert it, make sure the ZIF connector is popped up. If that black tab is down, you won't be able to insert it. Then position the connector into the slot and then snap down the black plastic ZIF tab. When setting the cable back in, ensure the bends in the cable are oriented as they were before. Install the left speaker in the reverse direction of removal, angling it in and pushing down to secure it. Then, tighten the T5 screws, a 3.8 mm, a 6.5 mm, and a 5.7 mm T5 Torx screw. Lastly, ensure the speaker is fully connected to the board and in the right spot. Next, the right speaker. This one fits right into place. Snake the cable down and around onto the adhesive where it was previously positioned. Align the screw holes. If you installed the battery correctly, everything should line up fine. Then, insert the connector into the board using direct downward force in the center. It should pop in with one good push. Attach the right speaker to the board using the T5 Torx screws. Again, a 3.8 mm, a 6.5 mm, and a 5.7 mm at the top. For the logic board cable, just push down directly in the center with good force. It should pop in with one good click. And then it's good to go. Next, put back on the bracket that protects those two cables. It's held on by two 2.1 mm T5 Torx screws. Be careful when working on boards or any electronics not to accidentally drop screws onto the board, as it can cause a short or damage. Also, be careful not to stab the board accidentally with tools. Bend the new battery connector into place. You might need to apply a little force to get it in the right spot initially, and then it will snap right onto the board. Finally, let's attach the lower case to the upper case. Do this in the reverse way from before, ensuring that screws that came from the holes go back in their homes. The two middle ones at the top are 2.3 millimeters, and all of the rest are 3 mm P5 screws. Remove the protective aluminum foil from the screen and power it on. The battery life is now 102%, quite the increase. Now, for all things computer related, subscribe to check out my channel.